Welcome back to the Gentleman's Chat. I'm Gent.
And I'm Rehash.
And we will not be joined by Devin Ooze today because he is, I quote, wanting to destroy the Power Rangers, so he's building 2 twin Megazords to try it.
Okay, I am genuinely shocked of just how much material is here. Raw material that can be used to create giant robots with.
Recycle.
Ironheart has no fucking excuse.
And since it's probably going to take him a while, we'll just get right into the review and... Rehash, what is that?
Oh, I was just feeling a little peckish, so I decided to heat up some leftovers.
No, you can't do that.
Well, why not?
Well, because now I want a pizza, and that's all I'm going to be thinking about through the entire review.
Really? So the mere thought of me having something that you are being denied makes your brain immediately want the thing that is desired that I possess.
Just get in the freaking car. We're going to Freddy's.
And to everybody else watching, this is my adventures with Superman.
I know you did this whole bit on purpose. The episode begins with Lois Lane calling up Jimmy Olsen as she's sorry that she stiffed him and is ready to go on the Sasquatch hunting expedition that she was supposed to go on, but was hung up on Superman being Clark Kent. Lo and behold, here's Clark Kent approaching her at the door.
She tries to tell him in the most soft way to back the fuck off, but he says he's not here for her, but rather is here for her help, as he can't reach Jimmy either. No cell phone, he even flew to the location and nothing, and he doesn't know where he is, so we're dealing with a missing persons case. Lois, realizing the severity of the situation, decides to help out Clark, but she makes it clear she's doing it for Jimmy, not for him. And since it's what he wanted, Clark agrees and moves along.
Meanwhile, we cut back to Jimmy, who is strapped to a dissecting table and is about to get probed? Hello, did we miss a chapter?
Actually, this was in the last episode. In the last episode, he was cursing out Clark and Lois for ditching him, and then he gets captured by a giant gorilla.
Okay, I feel like somehow we skipped over that.
Well, you skipped over that. I was perfectly stated.
And you didn't say anything?
I just wanted you to see your reaction.
Okay, level with me. You didn't set up this whole thing in order to teach me some sort of weird friendship lesson based on the themes of this episode, are you?
Oh, heavens no, I just really like this background. And since we're not a FNAF Theorist channel, we will hardly ever get a chance to use it.
Okay, well this is still a Freddy Fazbear, so keep an eye on the animatronics.
Oh, relax, I don't think anything bad was going to happen. Look at it. It's still in its Christmas costume. So Lois and Clark are investigating the mysteries of Jimmy Olsen. Lois seems to have this unusual ability of tracking, while Clark is just following behind. And then they have a conversation that's very long overdue. Why? Why didn't he say anything to her? Of course, I think that answer should be obvious.
Because she's a journalist, or aspiring to be, and a blabbermouth? But before they could reach any real deep conversations, they arrive at a closed-off area, where Lois is kinda nervous. And seeing that there's a giant hole there, well, they decide to go in. But when Clark goes in, something affects him, and this red energy is surrounding the area. Red energy to me would suggest that is red sun energy, which means
power dampening. He's being power dampened. Exploring a little further and things just get weirder and weirder as they find a large building with a large mountain, both of which have a massive gaping hole inside of. And then they find Jimmy's phone. They pick it up to play his last video, and it's just about him describing how this trip should have been a fun-filled adventure with friendship, love, and companionship, making them feel bad, and then we get a glimpse of the gorilla. Okay, place your bets. I bet 3 slices that it's going to be Grodd. I think that's a pretty safe bet.
You know what? I'm going to go for the long haul. I will bet 6 slices that it's the Ultra Humanite.
Ooh, that's actually quite an interesting choice.
I just really like the Ultra-Human Knight in the original Justice League. Well, we cut back to Jimmy Olsen and his captors, who are revealed to be Monsieur Mala and the Brain.
Well, looks like we both lose.
Yep, bet's cancelled. Well, they think that Jimmy is some type of secret agent spy surveillance dude, and they're going to permanently deal with him in order to keep him quiet. But Jimmy doesn't act in the way they expect. If anything, he's actually super excited. I mean, the idea of being experimented on by two very odd, strange individuals? I mean, it's golden for a conspiracy theorist nut who's looking to prove that he was right. But after he dumps his soul about how he felt like he got ditched by Lois and Clark, Mala turns off the machine and asks if he just wants to have a chit-chat and talk, which makes both Jimmy and the Brain taken aback.
We later cut back to Lois and Clark and
Cadmus?
That's definitely a red flag.
So we're not just dealing with Task Force X, we're dealing with Cadmus. Oh boy.
For you 1% who are non-DC watchers, Cadmus is a secret agent organization built on cloning, research, and genetic engineering. They were the bad guys to the Justice League Unlimited, where it was pretty much every single superhero. These guys were their threat. And we're only dealing with one Superman.
Well, as they explore Cadmus, we're getting small hints that the area is not as docile as it seems to be. But that seems to be small potatoes when compared to the floating cars, dead bodies, and serious shit that seem to went down.
But even with all the weird and strangeness, Lois still refuses to acknowledge Clark and his efforts, as little as they were. But then we get yet another video with Jimmy talking about the magic of friendship, which causes Lois to finally drop a little bit of the attitude, and then asks Clark straight up if he ever told Jimmy, and if so, why not her?
Clark says he doesn't want to talk about it any further, but Lois, now less from a point of aggravation and anger and more from a point of concern, she forces Clark to try to admit why is he constantly keeping it a secret and keeping lies from his friends, only for them to be immediately attacked by robots. A lot of robots. A lot of point, shoot, click, click, boom goes the dynamite robots. Okay, I can genuinely understand and even relate to why Lois is upset. If my friend was keeping something as big as being Superman from me, especially with how hard I've been working to try to uncover his secrets and identity, I'd be upset too. But you also gotta understand from Clark's point of view, and honestly, I'm more with him than I am with Lois. Yeah, would it have been great for Clark to tell Lois, hey, I'm Superman? Yeah, sure. And she could have helped him out, but we've seen how reckless, unpredictable, and completely insane in some cases Lois can be. This is a girl who's willing to throw herself off a freaking building over an assumption. Yeah, she had strong evidence that Clark was Superman, but again, she could have easily been wrong. And even if she was right, there's no guarantee he would have been fast enough to catch her at that point in time. He had a lot of emotions going on that moment. Clark would have had no reason to believe that she wouldn't expose him the moment she got the opportunity. They may be friends, but she's also an inspiring journalist, and is not afraid to take risks, even if it means completely inconveniencing those around her.
Also, superheroes don't genuinely reveal their secret identities.
Well, that's not entirely true. We got Iron Man who revealed his identity.
Yes, but Spider-Man didn't!
Yeah, true, there are certain cases where superheroes don't really reveal their superhero identities. Some do, some don't, and... Wait, rehash?
So, Monsieur Mala, instead of dissecting Jimmy, decides to give him a tour of the Katniss facility, showing all the wonders of science they've been able to create, like little gunmen from Gurren Lagann. Jimmy is of course entranced by all of this footage that he's getting all on camera. Science, mythological, scientific, engineering all of this sci-fi wonderland. But as much as Jimmy likes it, Brain does not. As the Brain wants to terminate him and get rid of him and not give him a tour. But Mala appears to be happy to just be able to show off some of the things that they've been engineering after all this time. And it's here we get a flashback of what happened.
While most Katniss facilities are focused primarily on superhero engineering and weapon developing, this specific Katniss facility broke the mold as they wanted to engineer scientific involvement and improvement of life and creative ways of using technology. And we also get a bit of an origin on how Mala came to be.
Also, it's clear that that scientist that created him is a complete zoophile.
I think that's the Brain.
The Brain is a zoophile. He fucked the gorilla.
I mean, at least it was consensual?
There's no amount of consent that will ever make it okay for that man to fuck a gorilla.
Well, the bigger branches of Katniss, oh man, how do we come back from that? Anyway, the bigger branches of Katniss found out that they weren't making weapons, and they decided to shut them down in the only way Katniss knows how to shut anything down. Guns blazing, pew-pews, everyone must die. Mala and the Brain ran for their ultimate device, a black hole creator, in order to protect it to stop them from damaging it, because it could cause catastrophic destruction. But of course, Katniss being Katniss, destroyed it and caused a massive explosion, which caused the giant hole in the mountain and in the building, and led them to where they are now. The two survived and continued their research long after Katniss believed that everybody was dead. But instead of looking for ways to develop humanity, they just kind of sit around because there's really nothing else to do except for their science. But then Brain and Mala get into an argument, which allows Jimmy to sneak off and do a little exploration himself. And then he stumbles across a very disturbing sight. The black hole generator is very much intact and up and running.
Honestly, anything that requires a black hole generator is already an immediate red flag, especially in comic book stories. But the fact that it's specifically Monsieur Mala and the Brain, because those two are most closely associated with the black hole generator in the original Teen Titans show, 5th season, in the Brotherhood of Evil arc. They opened with those two having a black hole generator causing mass destruction, so it is possible that these two are in fact secret supervillains. But we also know that the writers of She-Ra are taking part in this show. The writing style and art style it's completely obvious. So it is possible that they're not evil, but more of a chaotic neutral stance. But there's clearly some shenanigans going on here. Right, Gent? Bucket! Stop scooping Gent!
We later cut back to Lois and Clark as they're running away from the Pew Pew robots. Superman tries to fight back, but with the red sun energy dome that he's in, he barely doesn't do anything. So he has no choice but to run with Lois.
And Lois ends up setting off every single booby trap along the way. Some of them help, most of them hurt, all of them set off. And eventually, Superman ends up taking a few bullets for Lois. Whether or not he could take them, he did not know. Doesn't matter. This definitely touches Lois, but not as much as she's gonna touch herself looking at a shirtless Superman. I mean, look at that.
Oh my god, you could grind meat on...
We later cut back to Jimmy, who demands an explanation from Mala and the Brain about why the black hole generator is now fully repaired and active, and if it was destroyed, what's going on. This is where Mala was forced to tell the truth. While Katniss did attack, they didn't destroy the black hole generator. Rather, they were the ones who set it off to get rid of him, as a last-ditch resort. Not exactly the most good thing they could have done, but they really didn't have much of a choice. Since then, they've been trying to slowly repair the black hole generator, and trying to build it not to be a black hole generator, but to be a wormhole. Because this reality doesn't accept the strange. So they're just going to jump ship into another reality that's more accepting of their zoophilia, brain, gorilla, gay romance.
But then an alarm sounds of a proximity sensor as Superman and Lois have reached the facility. They tear open the door and the brain and gorilla attack. They're about to have a superhero supervillain smackdown before Jimmy Olsen gets in the way, causing the two sides to back off. After hearing that these are the friends that snubbed them, Mala and the brain give them some space as they have their inevitable conversation, as Clark reveals that he is Superman.
Clark, I know you're Superman. This is not a big reveal.
Wait, what? You know? Since when?
We've been roommates since freshman year. The day I met you, you ripped the handle off of the door, then tried to play it like the screws had just come loose.
I mean, it could have been the screws.
Ha ha ha! What a quirky misunderstanding!
Are you freaking kidding me? He knew the whole time? How many situations could have been made a lot easier if he just told Clark he knew that he was Superman? Well, I don't think it's actually that simple, since Superman is clearly fighting with his insecurities about him being an alien and him being so radically different from everybody else.
Exactly, and it led up to a pretty good and funny joke that's completely obvious in the hindsight, but we didn't see coming until just that moment.
But it caused so much suffering and so much problems with him not telling. I guess we're just going to have to agree to disagree on this one.
Agreed. No! Oh, so you're like bipolar or something.
Well, strangely enough, this causes a bit of a feud that Clark has to defuse because Lois found out and Jimmy thought that Clark told Lois and it's all confusing. And then it cuts back to the main plot where there's still armies of robots chasing them.
Yeah, kind of forgot about those, didn't they? So they all rush inside of the building, but the building is immediately swarmed. And a less than strong Superman, a gorilla, and a brain in a mech suit aren't exactly the most capable of fighters in this situation. But luckily, Mala has a solution. Send in the Gurren Lagann clones!
I love a good reference, but this feels like borderline stealing. But unfortunately, even with the Gurren Lagann clones, they're forced to make an Alamo back in the black hole generator room, where they're forced to fire off against all the robot invaders. And this seems like a perfect time for them to shout out their feelings as to why everything went down to begin with, and why Superman was keeping it a secret. And it's because he felt different, and if he admitted it to them, they might see him as different. And he just wants to be the kid from Kansas, no different from everybody else. And it's all lovey-dovey forgiveness if it wasn't the fact that they weren't under fire.
Well, Mala says if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and breaks the black hole generator again, causing all the robots to get sucked inside. But they also run the risk of falling inside the wormhole as well. And just as everything seems to go off, here comes... No, this is genuinely a writer's block. That literally had to be MacGuffin right at the last second, as the black hole stabilized into that perfect wormhole that Mala and Brain can use to transverse realities. So with the literal MacGuffin happening, they might as well MacGuffin all their other problems. Lois and Clark seem to make up, Jimmy seems to be making up with Lois and Clark, and they're all friends again. Mala and the Brain say their goodbyes and bid Jimmy adieu. But then Brain does make the offer to Superman, saying that he should come with, because they're strange, he's strange, they could find a reality where he's more accepted, but Superman decides to remain here in person because he likes this universe and he's not a pussy who's trying to run away. So they respect his decision and they walk off, but not before telling Clark that these robots, this defense system, that wasn't them. That was another group. The security system, also wouldn't go off for anyone that wasn't inhuman, which definitely puts Clark on edge. But then Mala and the Brain go off to their happily ever after in an alternate universe where they're probably the bad guys.
But the episode doesn't end there, as Katniss and that military guy from earlier walks in to see all of this technology that's lying about, and he's joined by, UGLY, you are ugly.
I believe that to be the parasite, or at least whatever remains, and he has a lot of work to do to get his revenge on Superman.
And that was my adventures with Superman. Gotta say, a very bold choice of not only making Mala and the Brain less evil and more chaotic neutral, as well as the weird implication that they're fucking. No sugarcoating it. They explicitly implied those two shove their dicks into each other.
Which sadly was the standout element in this episode, as the main point of it seems to be more focused on trying to get Lois and Clark to make up from the fight of him keeping the secret that he was Superman.
This episode also tried to throw in them trying to get Jimmy Olsen's forgiveness for ditching him. So weirdly enough, it was two please forgive us and move on past the betrayal storylines competing for story time back to back, as well as speedrunning it.
I think you two are looking way too negatively into it. Look at all the positives, all the funny jokes, great action, and great references to anime.
You shouldn't use humor to just cover up all the problems, though. And the problem is that there was at least 3 or 4 different storylines in this one episode, all competing for screen time. And one of those could have been drawn out a little bit longer, but they decided to speedrun it so that it all works out all the way in the end, at the very end of the episode. There's just so much in this episode that there's just not enough time to process it all. I think you both are forgetting that this series is only 13 episodes long at the very most. And if they hinge their entire plot on one story element at a time, then there won't be enough time for a good conclusion at the very end. Yes, they sped run the episodes, and even though it had some decent humor and some questionable implications, this episode wrapped up a bunch of different storylines so that it can get back onto the main storyline, which is what matters. That actually sums it up pretty well.
The liar reveal and the secret reveal storyline is one of the most basic in all of storytelling, and we knew that they were going to forgive him at the very end. So I suppose if they could just wrap up all of these negative story elements all in a neat little bow, and sacrificing one episode in particular so that they can move on to more important and pressing issues and later on down the road, I suppose that's acceptable. Not our favorite episode, but it wasn't entirely bad, and it did sum up and tie up every loose end that we don't want or need to be drawn out. So with that being said, we'll just have to see you in the next Gentleman's Chat. I'm Rehash, and Bucket!
There is no bucket, only Gent.
I really gotta find a new pizza place.